Hey everyone, this is Jetpack Swords, a casual games podcast. I'm Greg, and I'm joined by my friends and co-hosts James and Packy. And
Hello.
last week, James was talking about his disappointment with Destiny 2 Lightfall.
I'll keep going.
Um, I've. It turns out your opinion is not you. You're not the only person to have that opinion. It turns out. So yeah, like I've seen lots of comments about how lackluster it kind of is. Um, I'm recording. I hope you guys are recording. If not, then I'll deal with it in post. Um, anyways, so I beat Mortal Shell. I had mentioned in the past couple of episodes I was playing Mortal Shell, which is on Game Pass. It's a Souls-like game. It was interesting. I would give it a solid 3.5 out of 5, right? 7 out of 10. Like C, C grade, right? Not failing, not passing, or not good, not bad. C. Um, and it's because so on one hand, I think I've accepted I can play these types of games, so I'll probably get Elden Ring at some point, so that's cool. And then that, or actually more than likely, I will play something else that is nothing like this in the slightest, because God, dude, you need a break after playing it. And then probably play Wolong on Game Pass as well instead of getting Elden Ring. And so eventually I'll probably play Elden Ring, but that's a long ways off, I feel like.
I was gonna say, I feel like my
But
hard read on this is that you will play another similar Souls-like game, and it will just be a harder variation of that genre, and then you'll be like, all right, fuck the genre. So I feel like that's what it is for most
You
people.
just gotta play Elden Ring.
Yeah, exactly. Like Elden Ring's just the answer.
Very possibly, yeah. So a couple observations I had while playing the game. One, we had talked about it. I do like the whole use the item to become more familiar, get more flavor text. I thought that was cool. The different shells are kind of cool. The different weapons are kind of cool. The combat was fun. I like the hardened mechanic. I like having this oh shit button that I can hit in the middle of the attack because I read it wrong or whatever. And so I can smack the harden and avoid the hit from the boss or whatever. So that being said, they did something very wrong, I feel like. And because I think I should go pull up the time, but I'm not going to do that because it'd take too much work to pull up the time right now. But I spent probably, I don't know, I would guess 8 to 10 hours, probably 8 hours, before I beat the first boss, right? Like up to and including beating the first boss. And then I think I spent 2 hours beating the entire rest of the game. And the way it's set up is there's 3 bosses and then a final boss, right? And so it feels like it was a combination of you know how you play games sometimes and it's very clear that some areas get more love than others.
Yeah.
It very much felt like that. It felt like I just happened to pick the one area that got the most development time and resources because it was by far the biggest and longest to go through of the other two. And then the other thing that made this problem worse, excuse me, is the power scaling was it had to have been fucked up. That or they expected people to level up other weapons instead of just going all in on one. But by the end of the game, or by the time I was going to the third area and doing the third boss, I was at the point where nothing mattered. I could just kill everything before it could even hit me. Or not quite to that extent, but it was I struggled so much in that game in the first 8 hours. And in the last 2 hours, I was just mowing stuff down, not thinking at all, literally running full speed ahead, running into something and hitting RB a bunch of times and murdering it. And it, I'm not gonna lie, it felt a combination of good and bad, right? On one hand, I'm oh yeah, power fantasy. And the other hand, it's you kind of miss the challenge in a way, right? And so yeah, they screwed up the power creep there. I feel like is the impression I got. The other thing I thought was kind of interesting is so you unlock fast travel in the game. Oh, and that's the other thing is once you unlock fast travel, oh, it's so great. And also, it's kind of just could you have just put fast travel in the game and not have to unlock it? You just can always fast travel because that'd be great. Because between the not fast traveling, it was if you wanted to, like, when I was on the first boss, for example, right? Like, I had gotten to the first boss and I was like, I kind of want to go back to the main area and go to the shop and, like, do some stuff there. But I would have to run all the way through this area and then all the way through the main, like, thing and just, like, all the way back. And it's just like, I'm not going to waste the, like, however many, like, it would have been a significant amount of time to do that. And it's just kind of like, please have fast travel all the time. And then my last observation is kicking people off ledges is super duper fun, but it is not fun enough to make up for being gimped by a fucking NPC off the stage and losing all of your shit. It's bullshit. It's stupid. It's so dumb and frustrating. I would rather not have kick. I would rather not be able to Sparta kick them off the stage if the trade-off is me getting also punted off the stage. It was very lame.
Now you feel my pain from Soul Calibur.
I did ring you out a lot in Soul Calibur.
I hated that mechanic so much. I got it once every 10 games. You'd use it at least once if we were on that map. It would drive me crazy.
Oh, God. So beat Mortal Shell. And like I said, solid C.
That game does not sound very Souls-like in terms of it getting easy.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is like the first part was like fucking, it was rough. I sucked at it. It was awful, but like still satisfying in a way. And then it just got to, I literally just ran everything over like a truck. And I don't know if it was, in my opinion, I was using the best shell and the best weapon in the game. And I don't know, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. And clearly they had like ways to do things. Like one of the things that was kind of interesting is, so the shells are like, James, you touched on this, is, they pick your stats, right? Like which shell you're in determines how much health and stamina you have. And so there is an NPC in the game where you can talk to them and you can permanently sever your connection with the shells. And so you play the entire game as, the whatever you are. So you literally can't get hit a single time, which I was like, okay, that's kind of a cool way to like build the hard mode thing that people want to stream on Twitch into the game, as opposed to just like, you're just naked, right? Like it's kind of like built in lore wise of like, this is the hard mode, if that makes sense. I thought that was cool.
I think I don't have a ton of experience with the Souls games, but they usually have an item in the game you can equip that makes the game harder. Okay. So like Elden Ring, there's a character in the lore that is basically hated by every single other character, like is just globally despised. And you can equip a talisman that is like an icon of them, and it makes enemies way more aggressive, and they'll always aggro you like no matter what. So, and I think there's been similar things across the other FromSoft games also.
On the fast travel note,
always
does
cool
Elden Ring even have fast travel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought the Dark Souls games didn't typically have it.
They don't, but Elden Ring does.
I guess it's way too big for it not to.
Because they have a horse too, right? Like I was wondering if they just had the horse instead of fast travel, but they have both.
Yeah, they have both. It's a very, very big map.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Like, okay, you don't understand until you play it how large it is.
I did finally find my number. 15 hours was my playtime in Mortal Shell, and like I said, I literally think I spent 2 to 2.5 hours, probably 2.5 hours on. After I beat the first boss. After I beat the first boss and got back to the main area, I think I spent 2.5 hours in the rest of the game, which was like theoretically 2/3 of the game, right? Like 2/3 of the game took 2.5 hours and the other fucking third of the game took, like 12.5. Something is wrong there, right? And like I said, I think it's a combination of bad scaling and mismanaged. I don't even know if it's mismanaged, right? But like, clearly unbalanced development resources and time, right? So I think it's probably a combination of the two. Anyone else got anything else to talk about? I've been talking for quite a minute now, but I also have an interesting story to tell, but I would love to let someone else speak as well.
I just wanted to talk about news for today and this week.
Yeah!
So Monday, Paradox Studios, who are the makers of like Crusader Kings, Europa Universalis, Stellaris, They're a big publisher also. They helped publish like the BattleTech game. I think the studio that made the BattleTech games also the one that made all like the Shadowrun, more modern Shadowrun games. Prison Architect, I think, is published underneath Paradox. But they're like especially like in niche circles as far as like grand strategy games, so like Hearts of Iron, Stellaris, Europa Universalis, and Crusader Kings. Like they're the top in terms of that. And then they publish, like I said, a lot of other things. But they had a showcase on Monday, and they announced some games like City Skylines 2 is coming later this year, which is pretty cool. It's basically the only game to fill the shoes of SimCity. The first City Skylines is. Which, that's like, it's basically by itself in that market right now. There's a lot of like medieval city building games and like other ones like that. But as far as like modern era, just like grand scale city builders, it's basically City Skylines. So it's cool.
I'm shocked they're making a second one. Because they just kept adding on to the first one, right? Like,
they do, and they probably still will. But basically the first game was not made for modern hardware. Even though it's not that old of a game, it is not optimized for anything that's come out in the last like 5 to 10 years. Speaking from experience. So they're finally putting out a new one, hopefully later this year, which will be pretty cool. That same studio that made the BattleTech game, Harebrained Schemes, they're making a new like 1930s noir occult pulpy hero XCOM style game. So like classic adventuring stereotypes like Indiana Jones, that kind of thing, fighting, nameless evil empire fascist guys who are trying to get like artifacts and stuff. But it looks pretty fun. It's got a very pulpy art style. And Harebrained Schemes, like, they know how to make turn-based games. They made, like I said, the BattleTech game and then all the modern Shadowrun games. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting is that a new game, not by Paradox directly, but another one they published, it's a studio that I don't know if they've made anything yet, but they're relatively recent, but made up of like old Sims developers. They're making a Sims-like game, which, again, another game that basically is its own genre and is the only thing on the market in that style. And it'll be cool if it's successful to have a competitor, hopefully to push the Sims to be like more innovative. And, it's kind of stagnant, so it'd be cool to have something extra.
It's an excellent case of just like, I guess selling out. Right, but I mean, just like the amount of DLC those games have is so fucking absurd at this point, right? Like,
what's crazy is that a lot of the Sim stuff is like features from like Sims 3 that were in the game, and then when they released Sims 4, they took them out and resold them as DLC. Not all of it, but definitely some things. It's like
shitty.
It's fucking crazy.
I mean, it's like if City Skylines is dominant in its like genre, Sims is just overwhelmingly like it's crazy. There's a reason they get away with it. Like they've had that genre lockdown since like I remember my sister playing Sims.
I mean, I played them when I was a kid.
2003,
I played
2005.
A lot of 3, and I played a small-ish amount of 4, but like there's still nothing else like them,
they're just crazy good.
We'll
I'm not
see
surprised.
If it turns out well, but
I'm not surprised people are trying.
Yeah, right. From what I've seen, the Paradox published games are usually like pretty good. Paradox, like I said, like they may not be like the most well known, but I mean, like their games and their properties have like very solid followings. And they definitely, just like EA, have a similar strategy of releasing a product and then a billion DLCs and expansions and packs for it, which, some people don't like, but at the end of the day, you can always just get what you want to get. And like me personally, I love all of the Paradox like mainline games, all their grand strategy games, and then like Stellaris, they're all fantastic. So I think they do a pretty good job. The other thing that specifically today, which I didn't even know was getting announced today, it was pretty much, I thought it was a surprise, is Starfield has a release date finally. It is September 6th of this year. And there's going to be a big showcase on the 11th of June, both for Xbox and then one specifically for Starfield after that also. So they put out a trailer, which looks really good.
I like that they're doing them on the same day, but still giving Starfield its own.
Oh, it's going to be Todd Howard up there. Jacob and I were literally talking about it earlier. My friend Jacob, we were literally, Todd Howard's going to go up there and talk about Starfield for an hour, and I'm going to be enthralled the whole time. I love it.
Yeah, no, I saw that news today too. I was very excited. Just because I love, summertime's great, right? Like I love that showcase, that summer showcase for all the major publishers, right?
Especially
like
with E3 falling apart this year, basically.
Yeah,
nobody's showing up for E3.
yeah. But it's all kind of, it's just summer. It's just the summer showcase. Whether that's whether that's E3 or not, it's all the same fucking thing, right? Like, I mean, not really, but like for the people watching from home, at least, it's all the same thing,
Yeah.
right? It's different for the people going, but I don't care about them because I'm not special enough to go. But for us peasants, at home, it's all the same to me. So
I'm honestly surprised E3 is still a thing, just because, especially for the big players, you get just as much publicity like doing it all internally, like throwing your own little.
I mean, that's the thing, is it's not. This will be like, I think, like the first year, like none of the major players are doing anything with it. Like, I don't think a single one of the large developers or like studios or any of them are going to be there, which like they kind of like, obviously E3 faltered a lot back. Like when we were kids, it was like a super big, like all fans were there. And then obviously all the developers and like studios and everybody else was there. And then as we got older, it got to a point where it was just a corporate event, which like sucked all of the like fun out of it. Like it became such a like whitewashed, just like corporate thing. And then obviously with COVID, they couldn't actually do it like at all. And then like, you both were saying is everybody just does directs now. Like, why wouldn't you just do a stream? Like, so why would you do E3?
My impression is it's not, and I could be wrong, because again, we're peasants. We mean nothing. We are peasants in this society. But my perspective from a peasant is that I always assumed it wasn't about the publicity of announcing these things. I assumed it was about networking, right? Like, I assumed it was about the entire industry being in the same place at the same time, and Phil Spencer pulls Jim Ryan aside and say, hey, bro, I promise we'll put Call of Duty on PlayStation even after we acquire Activision, or something of the sort. Like, I always assumed it was about the person-to-person networking and like everyone being at the same place at the same time. Or like for indie developers, or like not even necessarily indie, but like smaller developers getting feedback on games, right? Like, because that was a big thing too, is like if you were on the show floor, you could play a lot of the games or early versions of a lot of the games shown there, and those developers could get early feedback on it. And so I don't think it was that. I mean, a lot of it's about the publicity, obviously, right? But I think a lot of it was also about that in-person stuff that, yes, us as peasants never get to experience. But I just like the word peasants today, apparently.
But I'm pretty sure you pay for a slot at E3.
That's
why I thought. That's why I was thinking, like, all right, everybody at this point should be giving up on stuff like that, because just releasing direct to online gets you equally as many eyeballs.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you're small, which is not who they want.
For me as a kid, it was always this really cool thing that happened every year. And like, obviously, like Greg knows, like the only time we would really talk the last couple of years until we started this podcast was whenever E3 would happen. We'd always text each other for it. And that was even after it wasn't
occasionally the Game Awards, okay? Or maybe Gamescom.
But, and that was even after it had already like had a lot of like the soul sucked out of it. But I remember specifically as a kid, like it seemed like such a more like fun, like it was less about the industry and more about the overall culture. It always felt like it was definitely both when we were younger, but it always felt like it had a lot more of the culture ingrained in it. And then I can't remember what year it was when they made it pretty much a solely corporate event where it was just very much industry focused. But that was like the start of it.
End of high school, early college.
I think a big part of it's like it used to be fun because it was all new. But like leak culture and just how informationally starved people are, like any news that would come out at E3, people find out beforehand, and then like because of that, like there's nothing new, or at least they didn't feel
no one
new.
knew Keanu was walking on stage.
Yeah, like,
no one knew he was gonna be there.
I think that's why it became very workshop-y.
That was a dank moment, though. That was a really sweet moment. Like even watching it live on a screen, right? It was still super cool to just like see fucking Keanu Reeves walk out on stage, for Cyberpunk. And then obviously the famous, you're awesome! No, you're not! Like, it's just like, there is something about that moment. And like that, moments like that, right, are why you would still, in my opinion, pay for the slot, right? Although the thing is, even when they were still doing it, right, like, so like the past, so let's go 6 to 8 years, right? So like basically when James was talking about, the corporate soul sucking has happened, right? And what, if I remember correctly, like technically, a lot of the people weren't technically at E3; they were at a separate convention center in LA at the same weekend or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that
so like
what's happening.
And maybe again, it's probably only one or two, right? Like it's probably whoever. There's probably not. There's a limited number of convention centers, right? that you can book on any given weekend, right? But so like I definitely remember like I think I believe like EA and Microsoft definitely like weren't technically at E3 a couple of the past ones. But they were still there.
Yeah.
It was just they just weren't. They didn't pay that organization. They paid some other thing for their spot on the floor. Actually, this is a great segue. So I'm assuming this is probably going to be a really short segue because I'm assuming the answer is no. But have either of you gone to any form of big convention? E3, Gamescom, BlizzCon, Comic-Con, anything like that?
I've been to Lexington Comic-Con a few times.
Okay.
I like Lexington Comic-Con. I've been there 4 times, maybe 3 to 5.
Okay. What about you, Paggy?
No, never.
Yeah, that is still on my. Neither have I, and that's on my to-do list. And I think I'll start with something like a Lexington Comic-Con. Something a little smaller and a little less crazy than I feel like a San Diego Comic-Con or something like that would be, or BlizzCon or whatever. But like at the end, I wanna be there when they announce the next WoW expansion at some point, right? Like I think that would be really fucking cool. Mainly because I had a friend who did it. He went to some BlizzCon and he paid extra for like the charity dinner ticket. And he was just like, I remember him talking about the experience, and he was just like, yeah, it was so cool to just be, hammered and sitting there at the dinner table, like talking with like one of the lead developers of like Diablo 3 and how they do something or whatever. And I was just like, God damn, that sounds like so much fun, right? Like to be there and actually get to interact with those people. Yeah, I'd love to do it. It's on my to-do list. I'm gonna take note, Packy. Yeah, like I said, James, what did you like about the Lexington Comic-Con?
You
said you liked it a lot, enough to go 4 or 5 times. So what keeps bringing you back?
Well, part of it, I have a distant relationship with my father, and he does cosplay. He specifically makes Star Wars Mandalorian armor. And so he would come down.
Yeah.
He would come down to do it, and he would like, oh, my son, who I haven't seen in 10 years or whatever, is in Lexington too, so we might as well hang out. And that was always kind of cool. But beyond that, it was just cool to be obviously with like local people, because like it's not huge, but like Lexington's not like a tiny city, and it definitely draws a lot of like the community out from like the surrounding areas. So it'd be cool to see like all the local creators with like their unique like art and stuff. Like I got some really cool Mass Effect 3 prints back when that was around the time Mass Effect 3 came out, from a local like artist, and like she did a really good job. And I used to have like it's still up in my childhood room at my parents' house. My brother has that room now, but he still has like that art up. So it's just really cool. And it's just cool to, walk around, and like I'm not like a big like celebrity person overall, but like they would get, like the usual kind of Comic-Con celebrities, like former Power Rangers and stuff, and like horror icons and stuff like that. And like, that's cool. Like my stepdad is a big Star Wars fan, like huge Star Wars fan. And he grew up, like the 70s and 80s and 90s. So like he was there for like a lot of the original runs. And he specifically loves Han Solo and Chewbacca. And Peter Mayhew came out to one of the Lexington ones, and my stepdad got to meet him, which is like, he was the guy that was Chewbacca. And like my stepdad thought that was super cool and was all about it. And I think one year, I think his name's Jeremy Bullock, I think is his name. He was the one that was the actor inside the Boba Fett costume in the original movie. I think he obviously like didn't do much, but like he was Boba Fett. He came out one time. I think my stepdad got to meet him too. So I don't know. It's just a cool atmosphere, and it's local. So like I don't have to drive to like San Diego or whatever. And because it's local and it's smaller, it's not like a headache for parking or lodging or walking around or, whatever. I definitely really, really want to go to like the New York one or the San Diego one at some point. And I have a friend, you all actually like would probably remember Vanya. I don't know if y'all remember Vanya. Greg probably does.
Yeah.
But she and her boyfriend have been to Gen Con in Indianapolis a couple times, and they said that's really cool too. So I don't know. I definitely would like to go to one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome, especially the like what you said about it bringing people together, whether that be distant relatives in your case,
Yep.
And also other, just like you said, just other people in the area, right? Like that maybe you don't see very often or whatever else, right? And so that is very nice to hear. And I also appreciate what you said about, the local artists. Like you mentioned, you have the Mass Effect 3 print. We have from a convention that we didn't go to, but I think like Susie's sister's ex-boyfriend, I don't remember exactly. But I think he went to like Comic-Con in Indianapolis at one point, and got some like Guardians of the Galaxy prints, I think, that looks super cool. And yeah, it's again, it was just like, I think they were just from some like local person or whatever. But yeah, they look really cool, and it's just kind of nice to have that piece of artwork, memorabilia or whatever, especially because like we have nothing in our house and our house is bland and boring. And so like every little tiny piece of something is something good to hang.
Yeah.
I think I had more things on my wall in my room in college, not in the dorm, but in the room in the house that we rented, than I do now in the entire house we have now. Just because like, I don't know, we're lazy. It's a lot of being lazy. Yeah, so maybe we'll have to do a San Diego, New York Comic-Con Jetpack Swords live in person episode. I don't know.
You have so little chance of getting me at a convention. I hate large crowds of people. That is why I've never gone. Not because the subject matter isn't interesting or anything, but God, that's a lot of people in a tiny space.
Also, I'm really cheap, and those fuckers are really expensive. Like,
definitely the big ones.
It's not just the ticket to the conventions, right? Like the tickets to the convention, probably not cheap, but honestly, compared to everything else, super cheap. The real issue is, where are you going to stay?
Yeah,
right? Like I'm pretty sure those hotels the travel's expensive, but not like terrible compared to like the lodging, right? Like I'm pretty sure my friend, I mentioned the one who went to BlizzCon. I think he said their hotel rooms were like at least $400 a night or something absurd.
Yeah, doesn't
right?
surprise me.
It's just because like
was my guess. Spend anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 on housing per person if you're unlucky.
Exactly. Like, and that's the thing is like, yeah, per person too, right? Like if you're splitting it with people, it's expensive but palatable almost. Whereas like I could never justify going with like just myself or like just Susie. It's just like it's so much money, right? Yeah. Like it's just so unbelievably expensive to do. Plus we have pets, and you have to like find people to take care of our pets, and it's just so obnoxious. And so it's just like, anyways. So that's that. I mentioned earlier I had an interesting little anecdote to share, unless Packy, you have anything. Oh, James, was that the last of the news from this week, the Paradox Showcase and then the Starfield announcements?
I believe so, unless I'm forgetting something. But yeah, that was the big things since last week that I saw.
I saw like a random thing in the Activision acquisition, but it wasn't very interesting. I think it was just Sony crying again, like they always do. I mean, just justifiably so, right? I mean, it was kind of funny. It was like they were the hypothetical, the scenario they proposed was a combination of either Microsoft would intentionally or unintentionally release Call of Duty in a bad state on PlayStation and then not fix it swiftly in order to give PlayStation players a sense that it is the worst thing to get them to switch, right? Like it just like, wow. I don't know, like the very, kind of tinfoil hatty of like, and I mean, you can't blame them. They're doing what they got to do, right? But it's just funny. Like, I don't know, that scenario never even crossed my mind of like, yeah, we'll keep it cross-platform for 10 years. It's just it'll suck on yours. Like, I don't know. Also because James, is your experience the same as mine in that every Call of Duty release in the past like 6 years has been buggy as shit, like already in the first place?
Modern Warfare, the 2019 one, was like super stable and great for me, but
initially, and then the fucking next one launched and it sucked, right? Like as soon as what was it? Dude, I can't even. Was it Cold War? As soon as Cold War yeah, it was Cold War. As soon as Cold War launched, and then they did the whole like Warzone merging, then like the 2019 Modern Warfare became a buggy piece of shit.
I was already done playing by the time Cold War came out.
Yeah.
And then I didn't play Cold War because it was awful. And then I played a good amount of Vanguard with Jacob specifically, and we just kind of accepted the bugginess because it was multiplayer, and we were only playing like the joke maps.
right?
Well, we were only playing like joke maps. It was like hardcore shoot house, 16 players all in a tiny room, and it was just guns and explosions and fire, and yeah, no, it was super buggy. It was probably one of the buggiest ones I had played. It was also just like really funny because it was so buggy. Modern Warfare 2 is the one that like I wanted to take seriously, and it's not well made. So
it's so bad, dude. Like the getting. I remember you would get bounced to the Warzone lobby before Warzone was even released, and you couldn't edit your fucking loadouts.
That.
Like, oh my god, it was so buggy. And then like Modern Warfare 2019, like we went back before 2022 came out. We would go and play. We really liked gunfighting it, and so we would occasionally go do like 2v2 or 3v3 gunfighting in it, and it was super fun. But I swear to God, it was literally like after every single match, we would get disconnected from each other and we'd have to reinvite each other to a party. I don't know. Like Call of Duty to me at this point is just like, it's already a buggy piece of shit. And I've just accepted it's a buggy piece of shit at this point because it's still fun. And so like, I don't know. I found it amusing that that's what they were concerned about. It's like, what if Call of Duty's buggy on PlayStation? I'm like, bitch, it's already buggy on PlayStation. It's buggy everywhere. It's terrible. It brings up a good
point of like, their point is that, as there's console or platform specific issues, and when Call of Duty is owned by Microsoft and they pull the purse strings on support, like you can't trust totally that in good faith they will pay equal attention to their direct competitors as they will Xbox. That's what I think. They're spinning out like the most crazy scenario out of that as you possibly could, but that's the root of their argument, which is true.
Yeah, it's 100% true, right? Like if something goes wrong and they have to choose which platform to fix first, even if it's only by 6 hours or 12 hours or a day, right? Like, you can fucking bet, of course, they're going to prioritize Daddy Microsoft's platform, right? Like, and that's a perfectly valid argument, 100%. I completely understand where they're coming from. I just also think it's hilarious. Again, because it's already a buggy piece of shit, but that's just my opinion. I had one more thing that this made me think of one more thing. Oh, random. But I want to get to my story. I want to tell my story. But I'm going to say this other thing first. Halo Infinite Season 3 dropped. Obviously, I like Halo Infinite. It's because it's just enough basic bitch modern shooter combined with just enough Halo to give me the right feels that I need. So played the multiplayer, the Season 3 launch. Escalation Slayer, which is aka gun game, is excellent. I love it. It's interesting because it's team gun games, so your levels are you as a team, which is kind of cool. I think they've done that in past games, so I don't think it's new. I just think it's cool. Not saying it's novel. Sometimes I feel like some people get offended when you talk about something. You're like, I like this thing. They're like, it's not new. Blah blah blah. I did it before. I'm like, okay, cool. I still like it. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I get that every idea in the entire world has already been done by someone, but. Anyways, yeah, thought Escalation Slayer was cool with the whole team-based gun game, essentially. The new, I can't remember the name of it, Bandit, I think, the new Bandit rifle, I think is what it's called, is awesome. It's like a DMR, but better. It's not even better, it's just different. It's like a DMR, but different, without the bloom, right? Without the insane bloom from Halo Reach. So it's fantastic. And then the Shroud, I think is what it's called, the new basically like smoke grenade equipment, super cool. Way more fun than like a normal smoke grenade in games, right? Because it's bigger and whatever technologically shit. It's very cool. Big fan of Shroud. And then the 2 new maps that I think there's 3 new maps total, and I've played 3 new official maps, and they're obviously shuffling in community made ones, which are cool. But I played 2 of the 3 new official ones, and they're both phenomenal. They're like, one of them was the super cool like kind of long map with like these like lots of platforming aspects to it, right? Like it was a very cool map. So quick summary is I really enjoy Halo Infinite Season 3. It's quite fun. Hopefully they actually stick with a reasonable pace of seasons and content instead of their 6-month thing, but who the fuck knows? They probably won't. They'll probably delay Season 4 because they always do. Anyways, yeah, that was that. The fun little anecdote is, so on this podcast, we've talked about how one of the many reasons consoles are as successful as they are today, and everybody doesn't just play on a PC, is because it just works, right? You just plug in the thing, and it used to be you put in the disc, now it's you plug in the thing and you click the download or install button, right? But you plug in the thing, you install the game, and you hit go, and you're going. That's it. The controller just works. You already got a TV in your home, most likely. It's easy peasy. It just works. Anyways, so my brother Steve, he was a guest on our podcast. You should go listen to it. I don't know. It's probably in the title of the episode. So he texts me and my other brother the other day, and he is like, "Hey, how much would it cost to get a Mac Mini? And so, or he's like, what's the cheapest way to get a Mac Mini with these specs or whatever? An M2 Mac Mini, which is Apple's new silicon chip, not an Intel one. Anyways, so my other brother, he responds. He asks his friend, and I'm like, oh, probably like just so slick deals alert and wait for one to go on sale at Costco or whatever. And anyways. My other brother's friend comes back and he's like, dude, just get a gaming PC. And Steve is like, I have a great gaming PC. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's incredible powerhouse, right? Then he's like, let me find the exact quote. I should have been prepared. And I should have found this quote earlier. But it was, lol, I have a great gaming PC. Aside from the driver and operating system problems causing sporadic crashing over past 2 years, I am frustrated enough to look to Apple for salvation. Because performance means dick all if it isn't stable. And I gotta say, that was just like, it was just, the epitome of what we had talked about of people buy consoles for simplicity, right? Like, you plug it in and it just works, and that's the extent of it. And so I just found it hilarious when Steve reached out and was like, my God, computers are so much. And this is a guy who has been, he's a software engineer at this point. He grew up with computers. He's built at least 2 of them, right? Like, very familiar with it, and still to the point of being frustrated enough to just like, I'm willing to buy an M2 Mac Mini just to play WoW on because it will be stable. And I just thought that was insane. I ended up he did end up pulling the trigger on it too, which is even crazier, right? Like, and he said if nothing else, he needed another computer for he does like some 3D printing in his basement. So he's like I need a lab computer is what he called it, if nothing else, if it doesn't pan out there, because he was like, yeah, I just care about like WoW and Overwatch and Diablo 4, and I was like, do Overwatch and Diablo 4 even are they even going to support Mac? And the answer is no, but WoW does. And so I was like, so you're literally just buying a WoW machine. Packy's like, I know this. I played WoW on a Mac Mini. This is bringing back memories to me.
Horrible memories. It was literally the worst experience. Dog shit performance. It barely worked. I could not do one of the raids because of my computer. Because specifically it was a Mac Mini. Admittedly, like, WoW is now so dated that you can definitely play it on pretty much any hardware, but Mac Minis used to be the lowest of the low.
That's true. And plus, that was before Apple started making their own chips for their computers, and now they make their own chips. And also, he bought like the highest spec one possible, right? Like the thing that like is kind of stupid. Like, it's just so overkill for everything, right? Like, it's, the thing that they always show. It's like, you could probably process gigabytes of raw 4K video while powering in 3 8K that kind of spiel garbage, right? Like, yeah. So I look forward to hearing how it goes for him, because again, I was just like, dude, you just want a console port of WoW. Like that's what he wants. Like Overwatch and Diablo 4, they're already gonna be on consoles. Like, you just need a console port of WoW. Like, if he could play it on his PS5, he would have been set. But instead, he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to buy a Mac. I don't know. Just insane. I actually suggested he buy a Steam Deck after the fact, too. I was like, oh, dude, you probably should have gone a Steam Deck.
Great.
I can't imagine a Steam Deck plays WoW well.
Well, so the real problem is, well, you can use a mouse and keyboard, right? Like, there's nothing stopping you from plugging in a monitor and mouse and keyboard. Yeah. What's stopping you from doing it? I don't know. I'm assuming.
Can you do that?
Maybe I'm wrong. James, do you know?
No, I have no idea.
There's no way you can't. Dude, you of course.
Ultimately, it's just a Linux machine. Like, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like,
if it has the ports.
Yeah, that's the thing is like if it has ports. I don't know. It probably does. It says if nothing else, you can do Bluetooth, right? So I don't know.
Dude, I would love to create a Bluetooth connection to my monitor to play a game. That'd be nice.
I mean, plenty of people use wireless mouse and keyboard, right? Like that's not a crazy thing. The real issue though is if he's having. Crazy. I do, yeah.
It used to be like really laggy, and people would be like, they would actively dissuade you if you were competitive in games from getting a Bluetooth mouse, and now like they're incredibly common.
Yeah, for sure.
They're just
and
so
it's also
now.
like, do you remember when there was always a dongle too, and now they're just like obviously like not dongle, it's just like native, like built into the thing, and you just it's yeah, they've done better. I ultimately though it would have been a bad choice because while WoW has a native Apple Silicon build for Mac, WoW does not have a Linux build, I'm pretty sure. And so obviously the Steam Deck, you can use Proton or Wine or whatever to play Windows games. But like if he's having like driver trouble on his current computer, playing WoW, then like pretty sure going through an emulation layer is not going to make that any better. That's probably only going to make that worse. So ultimately probably not a good choice, but still, I don't know. Knowing him, I wouldn't be surprised if he fucking buys one anyways in like a year. So, but that's all I got for today. That was my review of Mortal Shell and my funny anecdote of my brother just wants a console port of WoW. Anyone got anything else, or should we wrap it up?
I just want Bungie to know that I'm really disappointed in them. I don't understand how they went from Witch Queen to life. I mean, I do understand they messed up their release schedule and had to make a stopgap half-ass expansion, but I just want them to know as a long time fan of both Destiny and Halo, I'm disappointed. I'm still playing it, but I'm disappointed.
Still playing, but fuck you.
Well, the gunplay is still great.
It's yeah, dude. It's
although this one has so many bullet sponge enemies that I'm gonna lose, but it's okay. It's
more than normal. It's already a looty shooty.
Believe me, a lot more than normal.
That's a shame.
They've gone full circle.
The seasonal content's great though.
I remember when they made the update that was like, "Hey, we know I remember they it was publicized widely when they're like, "Hey, it's too bullet spongy. We're gonna tone it down across the board," and now they're back.
Yeah, it's
back indeed.
Like the writing on the wall of exactly why Lightfall is the way it is it's just so obvious. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, the seasonal content outside the expansion is great. It's just the expansion that's really bad.
That's a shame. Yeah. All right, Paggy. Unless there's anything else from you, we'll call it there. And actually, I will say, so this is episode 28. That means in 2 weeks we'll be doing episode 30. If either of you have an extra special topic or an extra special guest you would like, let me know and I'll try and arrange it.
I can try to
otherwise, I'll come
mine
up
and
with
Jake's friend Jordy on. He would love to be here.
Hell yeah!
I don't know what we talk about.
Get Jordy on.
But Jordy's great.
Love to meet Jordy. Love to talk to him. Also love to have Jacob on again, or we could obviously go to Fritz, or hell, I bet I can get Susie on here.
He hasn't had power for like a week.
I know. I didn't know that specifically, but I knew the Lexington getting fucked part.
Yeah. Schools were out for like 2.5 days because nobody had power.
Oh, God.
Dude, it was crazy.
All right. Well, thank you all for chatting, and thank everybody for listening. Adios. Have a good one.